Welcome to the Comics Cube, everyone. I am with Leinil Francis Yu. Good
Hey guys,
evening, Leinil.
good evening.
I have one question to start everything off. If I were to ask you if you were the most commercially successful Filipino comic book artist ever, based purely on drawing interiors and covers, so nothing about IPs, so Mars Ravelo is disqualified. Are you the most commercially successful Filipino artist ever, do you think?
I don't think so. I think it's still Whilce. I think it's still Whilce
You think
Portacio
it's still
because
Wills?
during his time they were selling millions, and I think the highest book I've ever sold is probably just 120,000. So I don't think it's comparable still.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking you've had a longer run than Wills on more books.
Maybe yeah, but the yeah, I think the superstar status. It was they were he was part of Image Comics, and that was he's part of history actually.
Rockstar,
So I don't think I can compare.
the Rockstar era. Okay, I'll
Yeah,
accept
yeah,
that. But
yeah,
now that we're talking about Wills, you got your start because of Wills, right?
yeah, yeah.
So what was that
Yeah,
like?
yeah. I was a huge fan. Even before meeting him, I was emulating his style. I was obsessed with his work. Wetworks, and I saw him first at on TV. He's promoting X-Men back then. He visited Manila and then promoted the X-Men on a showbiz TV show hosted by Ate Jo, who's now his current
Yeah.
wife. And so yeah, I think that was my first exposure to Wills. And then emulated him, and then later on I was able to get in the studio.
Was Wills your biggest influence, or were there others before you started emulating Wills?
I think Wills, yeah, I think it is my biggest influence. Before that, it was mostly 80s cartoons and John Buscema and his How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. But later
Mm.
on, after Wills, there was Travis Charest, which
Oh, I see that.
and then the Image founders, and
Yeah.
so I think it's mostly it's a lot of Wills.
And you won Wizards drawing board contest. That's young kids watching this interview will not know what Wizards drawing board contest was, but that was kind of a big deal, wasn't it?
Yeah, for me, for as an inspiration. It didn't it didn't contribute to my breaking into the professional world, but it was enough to motivate me to do better. Yeah.
Really, because I was watching that documentary Comicero Chronicles, and Gerry Alanguilan, the late Gerry Alanguilan, was saying was bringing that contest up for your history. So I thought that was funny.
Yeah. I mean, Gerry was definitely the one who got me into Will's studio, and then and if I think Gerry saw my work first at the J. Lee's drawing contest. He was one of the judges, so he actually voted for my work. So yeah, Gerry was instrumental in me breaking into Will's studio, and then Will's brought me to Marvel.
Will's studio is Starfire.
Starfire, yeah. Well, before that, I was actually I did one comic book for Entity Comics, Aster, The Last Celestial Knight.
The Last Celestial Knight. That didn't push
I was
through,
with,
right?
No, it had like a few issues. It was canceled right after. But I was, it was me. It was Jay Anacleto, Michael V did an issue. And then Oliver Isabedra was the first. He was actually the first Filipino comic book artist after Whilce. One of the first locally, internationally published. Yeah, but who else was there? a few others. Yeah.
Why do you think there's such a big gap? Like aside from Whilce, why do you think there was such a big gap? Because there was like a lot of Filipinos working in the late 70s, early 80s in comics, and then there's Whilce, and then Whilce kind of opens the door for you and Jay and everyone else.
I'm not sure if Whilce even. I'm not sure even Whilce is, for all intents and purposes, an American. You know, he broke in through the States, so it wasn't a local talent. So I wouldn't even. He was instrumental in bringing us in, but I think I'd still count him, you know, as someone, you know, in the States, based in the States, who had connections in the States. I'm not sure. But yeah, he's definitely instrumental in forming, in bringing the second wave of Filipinos for sure. But why is there a gap? I'm not really sure, but yeah, it's I think the Filipino the local comics kind of died down during that time. And a lot of the talents that were that broke in during the 70s and the 80s were from the local comic scene, and the ones most of us who came, you know, the second wave, we were like Marvel and Image Comics fans. So it's a bit different. Of course, there's some crossovers. Some people, you know, there are a couple of artists work at the local comic scene, but most of the ones who broke in, you know, we're American comics fans.
Yeah, I think the thing that both generations have in common is just the sheer level of detail that both generations have. You really put you know, a premium on detail that I think is interesting. I wonder if that's because of John Buscema's book, actually.
Not really. I think the detail for me, it's Travis. I mean, you know, if it's super detailed that if you just, you know, capture like half of it, you're still pretty detailed. But John Buscema is not that detailed, I think, right? I mean, looking at his work, but you know, very dynamic. I just love this stuff, but I'm not sure if detail is something I would attribute to his work.
Maybe just in relation to somebody like Kirby, I guess. But but then, you know, you drew one issue of Aster, The Last Celestial Knight. And then after that, 1997, you're 20 years old. And then you got Wolverine. At the time, the X-Men was the biggest thing, was the biggest comic in the industry.
Yeah.
And you start working with a legend, Larry Hama. And another thing that I thought was interesting about this is Wolverine is coming out of that time period where he's kind of drawn like Beast and with no nose and everything. So it was up to you to reestablish Wolverine's iconic look. So how did that feel at 20 years old, drawing who was probably the hottest character at the time, working with a legend like Larry Hama?
I think it was crazy. It definitely, you know, that's you know, a lot of luck is involved in my success. And had it been another book, or had it been another, you know, had I been placed in another title, I wouldn't have been, you know, my stature wouldn't have been fast tracked without, you know, Wolverine. It's definitely the character that, you know, made me, and it was unbelievable, but I was able to handle it by I don't know, maybe ignorance of the scale of what's going on. At that time when I was drawing it, I was looking at Aaron Weissenfield's Wolverine Death Blow, and of course, you know, that influenced me as well during that run, the early parts. But of course, Travis, of course, and I mean, I definitely owe my whole career to Wolverine for sure. Yeah, and you know, if Marvel wants me to make another Wolverine run, I definitely consider it in the future, not now.
And what's Larry Hama like? What was working with Larry Hama like?
Larry is quite gracious. You know, I was a newbie, and he was very accommodating for sure.
Right.
He's very, you know, I made a lot of mistakes. Like, for example, during that time, I didn't know what a Hummer is.
Oh.
And
yeah,
it was, I wouldn't have the internet, right? And I was too lazy to ask.
Internet was dial-up back then.
Yeah. And I was too lazy to ask them, because during that time I get my scripts via fax. So I had to make an international call, for just that detail, and just drew, instead of a Hummer, I drew like a like a random sci-fi ship, sci-fi like a car.
Yeah.
But he didn't call me out at that time. But yeah, he definitely gave me some pointers, I remember. And wonderful guy, to be sure.
Yeah, that's interesting, because a lot of fans are actually, I think Larry Hama has a reputation that he's kind of scary. Maybe because
I didn't feel that during my time. I didn't even realize he was as big as he was.
Yeah.
He is. During that time, I was ignorant. So he definitely take care of him.
But the guy who replaced Larry Hama on Wolverine, I'm pretty sure you knew how big he was at the time. So that was Erik Larsen.
Oh, yeah.
So what was that like?
Yeah. I never had any bad experience with any writer, to be honest. Yeah. So Erik was one of the most fun person to work with. I remember he always told me, if I asked, if I were to draw like a double page spread, I wouldn't put the face right in the center, so it won't be cut, it won't be cut
by the staples,
the stapling. Yeah. And I did exactly that. And he was like, did I tell you that? But he was, he said it in a light manner. So, but he's great, definitely great. Erik Larsen is great. I met him in person, and always nice.
Yeah, I was and your run on Wolverine, I think, is so iconic again, because I was looking through some lists of the best Wolverine artists and everything, and I think the time that you had on it was so important, and I think people forget this. You were reestablishing his look, because he was going through that really bestial look that was kind of, some fans liked it and some people didn't. But you had to reestablish, yellow costume Wolverine with the 3 claws and the regular mask. And how did you approach that assignment, that design? You just went with what you already knew, or?
Yeah, during that time, the the movie hasn't come out yet. So the handsome Wolverine hasn't been really established yet. So during that time, it was more of course, Mark Teixeira did a Clint Eastwood Wolverine, so that was also there. But during that time, I remember I still drew Wolverine with fangs. So it wasn't really, still a bit pudgy. He's short, he's stocky. A bit different from how I'm drawing him now, but I basically just did my own thing, to be honest. But of course, with Whilce's guidance and suggestions. But I remember it's still a bit feral during that time, and I wasn't really concerned with making him look, hot. And then Hugh Jackman came out, and then
Hugh Jackman
started to change. Yeah.
All of a sudden, Wolverine starts getting taller.
Taller, and has more handsome.
Do you guys get that directive from the higher offices? Like, if you have to make him look like the movie, or is that something that happens?
No, from my experience, they've been avoiding the movie look.
Oh, okay.
They always have. Like, for example, Spider-Man. The first Spider-Man webbing. It's quite distinct. And if you try to draw it in comics, they will tell you, "Hey, don't do that. It's the movie version."
Oh, the silver webbing on the suit.
Sort of, yeah. The first Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire movie, right? It was distinct. The webbing is a bit, 3D, and they've always tried to avoid, copying the movie versions, actually.
So you didn't know how big Larry Hama was. You knew how big Erik Larsen was. That was before the X-Men movie. In 2000, the X-Men movie comes out. and you end up working on X-Men number 100 onwards with Chris Claremont.
Yeah.
How'd that feel?
It was overwhelming for sure. I just wasn't ready during that time. I think my skills weren't ready for X-Men, especially ready for Chris Claremont. I think, if I think, I wouldn't say I dropped the ball during that time, but that was my best work, I guess, but it just wasn't good. I couldn't stand looking at them. There were just too many characters to draw, and I had a hard time. So the first X-Men, the first issue that I'm actually, I can still look at to this day is, I guess, X-Men Annual with Grant Morrison. I think that was a better issue, just because I probably had more time to do that. But yeah, the Chris Claremont run, I feel I wasn't able to match Chris Claremont there. I was I think disappointed with myself.
I mean, but to be fair though, right? Like that was you're 23 years old at the time, and here you are working with the greatest X-Men writer who ever lived.
Yeah. I could have, I should have been better.
So I think you should cut yourself some slack.
Yeah, I guess.
You did what you could.
Yeah.
Was the challenge working on a team book after you've only been working on a solo character?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, sometimes you don't know what you're getting into, and then you realize, this is taking too much time. It's too many people to draw. A lot of them are women, because during that time I couldn't draw girls as well as males. So I was learning on the job during those early days, Wolverine and X-Men.
Why is that? I noticed that. Like I noticed like a lot of male artists say it's harder to draw women, and a lot of female artists say it's harder to draw men. Like, why does that happen?
It's just practice. It's just we spend more time drawing, He-Man than She-Ra, right? And then vice versa. I guess it's just the time in. And if I for some reason I focused on drawing women when I was younger, I would have been, I would have been Adam Hughes today. It's just it's probably just practice.
Can you pinpoint when you became comfortable with drawing women?
Not X-Men. I really can't, but I can tell. Maybe, I don't know, 2005 upwards. I don't know, maybe maybe 5 years after X-Men.
That's actually an important date in my interview questions here. So,
oh really?
So before we get to 2005, 2003, look at the people you've been working with, right? Larry Hama, Erik, Larsen, Chris Claremont, and now you're working with Mark Waid on Superman. You're supposed to, Superman Birthright, it redefined Superman's origin. Like, how did you react to that assignment? At this point, you're getting high pressure assignment after high pressure assignment after high pressure assignment. And now you're working with a guy that, I think for 7 years at this point, because of Kingdom Come, people have been clamoring to write Superman. People have their eyes on this.
I couldn't feel the pressure, to be honest, during that time. I was just, I've been spoiled with working with Chris Claremont, Larsen, Larry Hama, so it's always Warren Ellis, right? So I've always been working with big name writers. So I actually didn't know the background with Mark Waid during that time. I didn't know that it was, it was a big pressure for him to do Superman again. But I know Mark Waid is a huge writer, and again, Mark Waid is one of the nicest guys to work with in comics. So there was almost no pressure because he's very nice. And I think it was during that time Smallville came out. I think they pitched it to me as like an alternate version of Superman. It's like a standalone. It's not an Elseworlds, but it's like it doesn't have to exist in the Man of Steel universe or whatever. So it's its own universe, I think, during that time, right? so I could design my own stuff. So not really. I don't remember any pressure during that time. It was just yeah. I just knew it was a big project. So yeah, I left Marvel for that.
How did you approach redesigning Krypton and all of the villains and everything? Because everybody who works on Superman's origin comes up with a new design. So how did you approach that?
Yeah. I don't know. I probably just pulled on my video game experience during that time. Some movies and stuff like that. But yeah, probably video games. I like playing video games. And
do you have specific video games you're artistically influenced by?
Can't remember. Of course, Star Wars. Not a video game, but the movie series. It's always, influences everyone. I don't know if Halo came out during that time. Probably Halo.
It's interesting.
Love cartoons and Halo comes to mind.
Do you have specific cartoons that you're influenced by?
Of course, Transformers, but it's a long time ago. And
I think anybody who draws robots is still influenced by Transformers one way or the other.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Of course, the Robotech.
Yeah. It's my favorite 80s cartoon. What's your favorite 80s cartoon?
Oh, it's Transformers.
Transformers,
Ghostbusters. Yeah. Ghostbusters and I like all of them. Ninja Turtles.
Have you seen Masters of the Universe Revelation?
Not yet, actually, not yet. Is it good?
Okay. I would say so, yeah. Like if you check your expectations in, I didn't take it for what it is. I think it's pretty good. Yeah. And then Superman Birthright. That's one of the very rare times that you went over to DC. Is it safe to say that as a fan you are really more of a Marvel guy?
Well, I guess because in DC, I like Superman, Batman, maybe Wonder Woman now because I can draw women better. But other than that, and of course the JLA, all of them together. But other than that, I'm not really interested in other characters in DC. But in Marvel, I think I can draw. I'd be comfortable in drawing any of them.
What was the difference like between working with DC and working for Marvel? Like just in terms of atmosphere or anything?
Well, I have very limited experience with DC, so I can't really tell. It's probably more like the process, I guess, the deadlines and stuff like that. But it's it's still, we're just working with people, and it's hard to compare. But I like both of them. But of course, you can probably tell that I'm more comfortable with Marvel, I guess.
Yeah.
DC is great. DC is great as well because and they've been they released the rights to Silent Dragon and High Roads to Us. They could have held on to it, but I think
they've been known to do that for different books.
Yeah. I think we have it back now. I'm not sure, but we got at least one of the properties back. me and my co-creator.
So between Larry Hama, Erik Larsen, Chris Claremont, Mark Waid, Warren Ellis, who would you say was like, how were their processes different, and who were you most comfortable working with?
To be honest, my work process is very impersonal. It's just emails and the script. I don't really talk to them. I'm not one to make phone calls and talk to them for hours. It's very impersonal. It's just get the script from my editor and cross my fingers that I get it right. So in the end, I'm just working with scripts. I'm not very I'm not overly friendly with anyone.
Do you ever work Marvel style, Marvel method?
Marvel Method is the one with no scripts, right?
Yeah, with no scripts. That's the plot.
I think that was my earliest. Those were my earliest. I think Larry Hama scripts were like that during that time. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And then I'm not sure, but I think I did some of the issues like that, or placeholder scripts, like, you know, really rudimentary, temporary scripts. And then later on, full scripts started to come in, because I think they're just better for space management. You know, for the panels to have space for word balloons and stuff like that.
And then when people give you a full script, do you ever, you know, take liberties with their script, change the layouts that they ask for? Or...
Very, very rarely. Very rarely.
Okay.
It's like 99% I stick to what's given to me. Even during, some writers even say, I forgot who, but a few occasions they've been saying, hey, Leinil, feel free to change, you know, whatever. If you want to make this like 4 panels instead of 6, feel free, blah, blah, blah. I still prioritize sticking to their original intent, just because, well, first of all, it's safer that way.
Oh, yeah.
So
they won't get mad. And, this is what you asked for.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. And maybe it's also less mentally taxing for me. But sometimes I do, you know, change something when it's very, very rarely, when it's more logical in the storytelling aspect. When it's more, sometimes I don't understand what's going on. Occasionally it happens, like, I don't know what's going on. Why is the succeeding panel like this? So it has to make sense to me, and sometimes I have to do that. And
I think
very rarely though.
I think that goes to show the fact that most of the people you've worked with are, you know, they know what they're doing. They know how to write. So 2006, you say 2005 is when you got comfortable drawing women. 2006,
I think, yeah.
You launched.
I think Birthright. I think I'm already comfortable with Birthright, and I think I'm already comfortable drawing women during High Roads. Barely. I think Silent Dragon, I'm pretty okay. Yeah. But I'm still not. You know, I'm still. I wouldn't say that. No, I could draw like a whole series starring a woman. I'm not sure if I'm that good yet, or even now. I'm not sure, but but it's I think during
what if the woman is Wave?
Yeah, for sure. But you know, it's still not. I don't think I'd be like an Adam Hughes or a Frank Cho level, or J. Scott Campbell. But I think Birthright and Silent Dragon upwards. I think I've gotten comfortable.
Yeah, I don't think you need to be those guys to draw a female character solo. Yeah. 2006, you launched Ultimate Wolverine versus Hulk with Damon Lindelof. This was kind of a big deal, wasn't it? Because the Ultimate Universe was big back then. Wolverine was always big. The Hulk is always big. Yeah. What was your experience working on that comic?
I thought it was a big deal because it's Damon Lindelof, and Lost was a huge hit during that time. Yeah, I was a big fan, so I spent a lot of time on those pages. That's why they're like 1,000 patches per page. But yeah, it was a great experience. Damon Lindelof is, again, one of the nicest guys to work with. When the issue 3 was delayed, I was like, he's working on Lost. So what do you expect? I wasn't really disappointed. That was a fun time. That was the script. The script, he doesn't write comics, but the script is great. He definitely knows what he's doing. He's definitely a storyteller.
So when you say that, you rarely change what's in the script, was this one of those times? Because this is his first time writing a comic. Yeah.
He's very, what's going on is very clear. Very, he gives me a lot of space, like per page. I think we're working on, definitely he gave me a lot of space to make pretty images. So I think he has definitely the instinct to draw to write comics.
And this was, if I remember right, this was a comic where your pencils went straight to publishing, right?
Yeah. It was colored by Dave McKeag. There was why did it? I think I lost my ink during that time. I think I was. I think Edgar decided to color during this time. I think he got burnt out with inks.
With inking.
And then Gerry during that time was with Whilce still. He was doing some other stuff. So it was
Yeah. And then, so they just decided to print your pencil straight up?
Yeah. They suggested it to me, and it's a new challenge, and of course they paid me extra for it. So it was, because it takes, it's harder to do to it. Your pencils have to be extra crisp, and
darker.
There's darker. You have some post processing involved as well. It's definitely a cleaner pencil.
Because Jay was already doing that, right? Jay Anacleto.
Oh yeah. Well, he's always been a pencil guy. Yeah.
Did you talk to him about that process, or?
Not really, because I was it was a different approach. I wasn't doing grayscale.
Okay.
Right. It was really line art still.
Did so with the evolution of tools, so you went from pencils and inks, then you did this thing with just your pencils. Now you've got tablets and everything. What is your preferred tool at the end of the day?
Right now, I've gotten comfortable with a Wacom. For some reason, I've gotten comfortable with it. If paper had undo and resize, and you could flip the image, and you could, of course I'd like paper, but I think
layers.
I've gotten comfortable with Wacom pen. I still haven't moved to Apple Pencil, just because the screen is smaller, and I think it and the pencil doesn't have a spring on it, doesn't have a give, so it takes some getting used to. It's like drawing on glass. So I think I'm a Wacom guy for now, but I think it's eventually people will just move to Apple Pencil, just because of the iPad. It's just a powerful tool you can take with you anywhere you go, and you have your workstation with you in a small package.
So is Apple products really better for graphics than non-Apple products?
No. Wacom is of course the best, but I think Apple has now kind of not surpassed it, but just as good, but in a smaller package. So I'd rather get the Apple version. Like it's like 1/3 at least the weight of Wacom's 16-inch drawing tablet.
That's insane.
But the screen is also smaller. It's tiny. Yeah. It's 13 inches, so it's very. I think some artists have now shifted to iPad. So, but I'm still, I still like my big screen with with my arms on the, I can see everything there.
Ultimate Wolverine versus Hulk took 3 years to come out. How did it feel when that was finally finished?
It was good. I mean, it was anticlimactic maybe, but it was I really wasn't bothered by the long interval, to be honest. It was more of the fans. I'm not even sure how it sold.
You had things to do in that time.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, I was busy. I didn't care.
You kicked off, in 2006, after in the middle of working on Ultimate Wolverine versus Hulk. You start working with Brian Michael Bendis, who is Is it fair to say he was the biggest writer of the 2000s?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think so. During that time. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. New Avengers, right? So here's my thing. People always talk about how 2008, the MCU, that's what made the Avengers the primary Marvel franchise. But that's not really true, because with New Avengers, that was already starting to happen. It was already starting to take over from the X-Men, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And at this point, you realize this is a team book. So you were not comfortable with a team book 6 years before this, and now you're working on a team book with Bendis. Can you talk about that experience? Yeah.
I didn't know what I was getting into. But yeah, surprisingly, I pulled it off. The first issue I did was New Avengers 2022. It was mostly a solo book, right? It was Nick Cage. Sorry, Luke Cage.
Okay.
And
it would have been a different world if it was Nick Cage.
yeah. It was just Luke Cage, so it wasn't that hard. And I got a lot of time for that issue as well, so it wasn't. And then slowly it was getting harder. More characters are coming in, and Bendis scripts, definitely one of the nicest guys ever, but it's also the hardest scripts to work with because of the sheer number of panels per page and the number of talking heads per page, like 8 panels, and then per panel there's like a couple of people talking, having banters, and it was really hard to manage. But then again, I realized, Olivier Coppel did a Bendis issue, and he handled it pretty well. So maybe it's just my shortcoming. I don't know. And then the what made it harder later on is that he started introducing new characters that I have never drawn before. So that's usually that's kind of, it's a learning curve for me. So I have to learn how to draw them.
Who?
It's like the villain gallery. Remember? He introduced a lot of villains during the tail end of my run. So that was tough, but definitely Bendis is one of the nicest guys, and definitely he took me along for he was the biggest writer back then, and I was part of his I was part of that ride, and we did Secret Invasion together. So
Secret Invasion. You drew this big event in 2008 for Marvel. It will be adapted into a Disney Plus show. That should sound And did you ever think it would be as big as it became, or is becoming?
No, I didn't. I didn't expect it, but then again, it's only the Marvel, the MCU universe expanding this big is, I think, just a recent phenomenon too as well. There's just too many titles they're launching. I don't know, like 30 titles. So I guess it's not surprising when you look at it that way. But 5 years ago, I wouldn't have thought they would. They would make it into a series. I don't know any information about it though. So
that Secret Invasion though, I think a lot of people, when they're talking about it, they still talk about it's one of the most well-remembered events that I know in Marvel history, and Filipinos especially remember it for one very specific panel. So how deliberate was that you put our former president Gloria as a Skrull?
It was a misunderstanding, I think. I don't know if I misunderstood the plot or the people misunderstood the story, because obviously I put Obama there. I think George Bush was there. I forget, but it's not really a dig on GMA, although I would have been comfortable if it were. I don't care because but it wasn't. It was just me putting a Filipino world leader in there, because I think the plot, as I understood it, it was just the Skrulls taking on the faces of world leaders to make that message, right? It's not that they replaced the world leader. It was just they just copied the look and then gave the message. So I'm not sure if so how did you find that? So how did the comic book read again? I can't remember. So so were they Skrulls? So were they supposed to be? Did they replace the
To me, it read that they replaced the leaders.
Oh, really?
But I think that I think that the news ran with the image and just the image.
Okay.
Right. So that's the equivalent, taking it out of context. That's how it read to me. I might have read differently to other people.
Yeah, I think the way I understood the script, it was just the look. Yeah. Secondly, I don't think there's a single American who ever said, "Oh, you put Obama, you made Obama as a Skrull." I knew it. I mean, they'd be the first one to react to it, right?
Yeah.
So the politics is so divided over there, but nobody ever brought it up. So it was just the Pinoys who were like, "Hey, Gloria's a Skrull, blah blah blah." Nobody ever said Obama's a Skrull. I knew it. The anti-Obama people never said a peep about it. It's just weird that it was just us.
How much of that do you think is the fact that back then there was just no representation for Filipinos, right? Like there's just none. So and then ever since, Pacquiao was one, like has beaten everyone except for Floyd. And we have you created Wave. 13 is now a Netflix show internationally.
Yeah.
So how much of that do you think back then was just like, oh, hey, he put something in that represents the Philippines? And depending on where your politics, because I didn't like her, so I loved it. So, I
didn't like it either, but it wasn't a statement just because I don't hate Obama. Why is it there?
Right.
So it wasn't. I don't get it. It wasn't a dig on Gloria. The same way it's not a dig on Obama.
I think also this was only a year after. I don't remember if you remember Desperate Housewives. Terry Hatcher said Terry Hatcher's character had a joke about Filipinos, and then we went crazy about it. They were like, "Oh, Terry," and I'm like, Terry Hatcher's character is an idiot. It's okay.
Yeah. I don't know, but I think Marvel, when it comes to Wave, I think Marvel really has I think it's an internal thing that they really wanted to represent everyone. So it's really Marvel's editorial, and again, Wave was conceived by Greg Pak, to be honest, and I was brought in and
the designer
with the design. So we have to give credit to where credit is due. I didn't know that Marvel was open to Filipino characters during that time. Because the meetings, the summits usually just involve the writers and the editors. So
really,
okay. Yeah, I mean, probably they bring in some other artists, but it's usually it's understandable.
I guess it's understandable.
The story comes first.
But shouldn't they ask you guys what you want to draw?
Well, I guess, but it's a production line, so comes to the story comes first. I mean, the idea, the editorial probably comes up with a direction, and then the writers, and so Marvel. I think it's an internal thing that they wanted to globalize, and they wanted to appeal to everyone and to represent everyone, which is a good thing.
I think it's smart too, because the Filipino comic book community is clearly very supportive. You just have to see, you just have to go to Fully Booked or Comic Odyssey. We clearly like our comics. Can you talk about your relationship and partnership with Mark Millar?
Mark is definitely, this working with him was life-changing for sure. He's one of the most positive people I know. It's like nothing ever brings him down. Very optimistic, and it's very genuine. Actually, his optimism is actually real. We have this adages where success is blah blah blah. It's like you have to be positive and you have to just pursue whatever, and then Mark is the embodiment of that. Of course he's very talented as a writer, but he's also very determined and very very optimistic, and he sees opportunities in everything. So he told me that, I'm not sure if I remember correctly, he liked my work during Superman Birthright. He first saw me during that time, and he actually said that he considered me for Ultimates. When did the Ultimates come out?
Ultimate Comics. Oh, the first Ultimates was the first 2001. Or no, 2002, because Ultimate Spider-Man came out at the same time as the movie. So it must have been 2000.
So maybe it's probably another Ultimate series. But So I guess Birthright came out a bit later.
Oh, Ultimates, as in the Avengers Ultimates, was like 2003. Yeah.
2003. Yeah, I think when he saw Birthright, he considered me for Ultimates.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad he didn't, because I don't think I would have done half as good as Hitch. For sure, it's like the cinematic. The Ultimates would have been very different had I drawn it. It wouldn't have been cinematic, and
So actually, let me ask you about that, because you worked on comics 1997 onwards. During Ultimates, Brian Hitch clearly changed the way costumes are drawn, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did you when did you realize you guys had to now draw costumes that way, like more like they were actual clothes?
It's not. I don't think I was influenced by it, by him on that aspect, by Hitch on that aspect. I think Travis has been more detailed still, right?
Yeah. But I mean, like, just in terms of making it look like an actual clothing, right? Because I think everybody changed at some point with the way they drew costumes.
I'm not sure. Yeah, maybe. But in my case, it's more Travis. Like the way you have to draw each shoelace. It's Travis. You have to draw the under sole of the shoe.
Isn't it sad that Travis barely did any comics?
Yeah, it is.
I wish he drew more.
I think Hitch to me is more like the cinematic, the cityscapes, the destruction, and the scale of the events, the impact of superheroes in cities. I think it's more Hitch to me.
I agree.
So I mean, I don't think I could have done Ultimates the same way.
But then in 2010, you did Ultimate Comics Avengers anyway. With
but it's not as good. I mean, I don't think it's comparable to Hitch.
I am very fascinated by this, because you're one of the biggest artists of our generation, and you continually say you're not as good as this artist. You're not as good as this artist. That is incredible to me.
No, I'm just being honest. It's. I mean, you can put it side by side. My Ultimates and then Hitch's Ultimates. They're very different. It's just the scale is very different, and I wouldn't have done. I'm not willing to draw like the spreads that he did for what issue was that? The multi-page spreads. I'm just not willing to do it. I'm just not. I'm just not gonna do it. So I guess it's he deserves the credit for that, and
he'll probably say the same thing about you. So
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. The backgrounds it did. I think recently he did Ultron. Was it Ultron with those ridiculous backgrounds? I'm just not gonna. I did it before. I did some in High Roads, I guess, and some Birthright, but there was it's just tough. But
yeah. With Mark, you also did Superior and SuperCrooks. So
so that was like I mean, that was probably the best decision of my career, because it definitely helped me out tremendously later on, of course, financially but it's always been Mark planned it for to make into movies and stuff like that. So of course that was one of the motivations. But just just to be able to do a Mark Millar World title is definitely fun for me. And it was really, it was hard. There were two stages in drawing those comics. The design phase, which took forever. It was just, I sent Mark like hundreds of versions of each of the characters, I mean, put together. So that was really tough. That was like working, with a tough editor, because basically Mark served as an editor as well for those Millar World books. That was really tough. But during when the designs were approved, and then it was just drawing the comics, it was just easy. It was just like any other Marvel comic book. So, and same way with the SuperCrooks, and same, it's just, I sent like 100 designs. And good thing good thing we have digital, because it's easy to, we have layers. You can change the colors on the fly, and just move sliders. But without it, I'm not sure if I would be able to produce those designs. So yeah, I mean, for sure, it was, there's probably hundreds or thousands of creator-owned titles floating around in comics right now, and all of them, all of them are I guess, vying for video game, movie, or TV attention. And with Mark, there's a bigger chance. Of course, he has this. He has his name in the industry, so that's of course a motivation. And then when we sat on it for like 10 years, and then Netflix came in, so that's definitely life changing, to be honest. Yeah.
So I'll ask you this question, because people like to debate all the time, right, about who actually created the Marvel universe, Stan Lee or Jack Kirby, and all of that. And a lot of people are like, until it's drawn, it's not created, so it's actually Jack Kirby. But you seem perfectly fine with putting Mark as the primary creator of these books. It
depends. For example, he has already a name when we created it, right? So those characters would have been created with another artist. It would look very different. It probably will be less successful. I don't know. More successful, less successful, we don't know. But Mark would have created those characters anyway.
Okay.
If you understand, right? It depends. Right. If had I been the one with my foot in Hollywood, I would have done the same. I had an idea. I have these characters, and I would have just gotten writers to work with me. Or I could even work with a ghostwriter if I wanted to, right? But in our situation, Mark had the clout, and he would have. It's situational, and I think during that, in our situation, Mark had definitely like a bigger name. He had the connections, and yeah, it was his idea to do something together, right?
Yeah.
I have my ideas as well, but it's not. I probably won't have the connections to make it work. So I guess it's very, I don't know, it's situational probably.
You could go through Mark. That could be your connection.
Oh yeah, maybe, yeah, for sure.
What's it like working? Okay.
Yeah, I guess I would have been more careful if I don't have the rights anymore to the characters. I sold it to Mark, and then Mark sold it to Netflix.
Okay.
I'm not sure what will happen in the future, if it's going to be reverted back to him, but I guess it's so I can be more honest with that with those IPs. Well, yeah, they would definitely look vastly different if I mean, but the comics would have been produced, I guess, in my opinion, with another artist.
And it would have had the same plot. It would have had the same name.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Same plot, same names. And it's very complicated because in Walking Dead, right? I think it's an issue. Yeah.
I think it's an issue.
But it's very, actually, this is more clear cut than Walking Dead, because Walking Dead is a bit, they're basically ordinary people, like a sheriff. Like, how do you design a sheriff? Like, a sheriff is a sheriff, right? So
yeah.
So I've been, I'm more liberal in giving credit to Mark, because Mark also never forgets to credit me as a co-creator anyway. So
yeah. What's it like working with Jonathan Hickman, who you have worked on twice, Avengers and X-Men? Your last ongoing was Hickman's X-Men.
It's very enjoyable. I think we play the same. He's really into sci-fi, I think, and we play the same games and into the same movie. So I think one of my favorite runs would be Hickman, my Hickman Avengers, the one where time travel is involved, which is he's very fond of, and I'm it's my cup of tea, to be honest. I like sci-fi stuff. It was really fun working with him. My initial work with him, the Avengers, way back. I remember it was hard because the scripts come in small increments, so it was I get a lot of time, but the book is delayed because of it. That's why the pages were prettier, because it's more, I had more time for each like 5-page chunk. So yeah.
The earlier pages, or more time.
I guess pages. But yeah, there was always fun to work with Jonathan.
Who is your favorite character to draw?
I don't know, Wolverine maybe.
Do you have
still Wolverine? Yeah.
And it's still Wolverine after all these years. It's still Wolverine. Is he your favorite character as a fan?
Yeah. I guess. Spider-Man is cool, but it's it's hard to draw, to be honest. you have to keep the poses original, and he always comes with a building, so you can't draw Spider-Man in the snow like you can Wolverine.
What about Captain America? You did a 6-issue run with Ta-Nehisi Coates. I believe this is the first time ever that the whole creative team of Captain America, writer, penciler, and inker, none of them was a white American.
Oh, really?
I think so. Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
So what's working on Captain America like? I feel like that was a new assignment for you, even though you drew him in Avengers.
Yeah, it was definitely an honor working with Ta-Nehisi Coates. It's also, it cost some stir, but as you know, a lot of some reactions on Twitter with someone who thinks he's too political, and they didn't want politics in their entertainment.
In Captain America? Captain America.
I know, right? But yeah, it's I had a great time working on it. It was also my last work with Gerry, which is makes it a bit special. But yeah, it's I enjoyed working on it. But again, we emailed with Ta-Nehisi Coates a few times, but it's very I just worked on the scripts. But I'm glad I was really happy to be part of it.
Yeah,
for sure.
You did you played off of the legendary Frank Miller story Born Again as well. You played with Nuke. So I thought that was pretty cool. Tell me about Gerry, like any fun stories, memories, just anything about Gerry.
Well, it's a lot. When we started out in Starfire, he and Roy were the real stars of the studio, because they was the one bringing in work, and I'm just one of the guys who just sleep there and hang out with them. And he introduced me to good comic books. We talk about a lot of stuff. He's definitely a bigger brother to me. I've never considered him like a pal. It's always like a big brother. There's always this reverence, like an older brother thing. Well, yeah, he affected my life in many ways for sure. Not just professionally, it's just yeah. It was
Is it safe to say he was your favorite inker?
Oh, of course. It's one of my favorite inkers and friends, to be sure.
Yeah.
It's yeah, it's I of course there are a lot of regrets. I wish I could have spent more time with him. And during when he wasn't doing well, I was very conflicted with, should I keep giving him work, asking him to work, or should I, but he wanted to work and hurt. So it was a difficult time for them and for everyone, I guess, for his friends as well. It's hard to distill like 20, 25 years of a relationship in a few sound bites, but it's definitely one of the people who affected my life profoundly, for sure.
Yeah, did it take you by surprise? Because that was really sad. I think the whole fan community was really sad when the news was broken.
Not completely, because like for years before that he was very weak.
Okay.
He was very, he's not in great health. But apparently what ultimately caused his passing was something that they didn't expect. Something else. So it was I guess it was both a surprise and not. Of course, it's a shock to say to hear those words when and Eileen called me. But for years he wasn't doing really great. So that's why I was like, I'm not. I feel guilty, having sent in work, having to look for the pages sometimes, But he's always delivered great pages. He never even at the latter part of his life, he never turned in substandard work. He's always been very passionate about his work.
Seriously, like when I saw the work that he penciled himself, I was like, why isn't he penciling more?
Yeah, it's actually making me guilty because he's not in the best shape of his life, and yet he's still working, but he's also not working on his passion projects. And I wish he would have just made more comics on his own. I guess that was part of the conflict, and like the it's a bit I was a bit guilty about that.
I'm sure he doesn't regret it. He didn't regret it though.
Did you? So.
I know that Gerry had one of his passion projects was promoting Filipino comics, local Filipino comics. Did you ever have any interest in, bringing any of those properties back to life, or revitalizing anything, or doing something for the local market?
Not yet, but eventually it's probably something I want to do in the future. Right now I'm taking a break in interior art, and it's definitely it's time to, I don't know, I'm thinking about doing some tutorials or mentorship, but and probably taking a step back in interior art, and I don't know, doing something else, but I'm not sure yet. Yeah.
Okay. For my last question, I'm just gonna flash my screen, and I'm gonna show Wave, and I'll just ask you to run us through the design elements when you were creating Wave. Can you run us through the various design elements that you use to create Wave here?
Well, so when the notes I got from Greg and from Marvel, it was just a female Filipina in a dry suit. Is that a dry suit? Like a wet suit?
I guess so.
Like basically overall a black what do you call that?
I guess you call it a dry suit, or is it a
rash,
wetsuit?
like an overall rash guard. I don't know.
Rash guard, yes.
Probably a wetsuit. Yeah, like a whole body rash guard.
Yeah,
and that's it. And rash guards usually come with like a neon color, either pink or blue or whatever, right? So I guess that's I chose jade and teal, and teal works with gold. And
where did the gold come from?
I don't know.
Like, where did these gold, the headpiece and the shoulder blade, the shoulder pads?
Well, obviously it's they're video game elements, sci-fi. I like sci-fi a lot, and but I didn't want to go tribal because it's what's really expected. Everyone like has a tattoo and stuff like that, and I just went for the Filipino swords as a high-tech version of it. And to make it Filipino, but it's not it's less typical, I guess, but it's still it's typical because a lot of our Filipino characters have the double sticks and so I guess in that way. But I guess the giving her the swords would definitely give her the Filipino elements without and then she's water-based, so I gave her the fins. Again, these were the swords and the fins weren't part of the script of the notes, but she's water-based, so that's one of the requirements. And some people draw her with like a butterfly wing, but it's actually a fin, like one, like on her spine. So it's just to make sure that just to drive home that she's water-based.
So that's just one straight thing. That's not two. That's not two wings.
She's not a butterfly. It's a fin supposedly, but it's high tech, so it could probably could do anything. And originally she was supposed to be tech based. That's why we have basically the tech on her shoulders and on her forearms. But I'm not sure they might have decided to give her some mystical powers. I'm not sure what's going on right now, but originally it was tech based. She was science based.
Very cool.
So I think the gold and the teal, they just look good together.
They do. Yeah,
it's just a match. Yeah, so can you imagine that to be like golden red or golden blue I'm not sure if it's a good match. It's just cooler in the eyes. And the face, she had my initial designs actually had a full face covering.
Really?
Because she has to breathe underwater, and I realized she doesn't look like a superhero with a full headgear on. And then I decided to give her that like headgear, but with a clear face, like a face shield, right?
Yeah.
And then I realized, just get rid of it altogether. It's comics, so she can just breathe.
She can breathe underwater.
She can breathe underwater. But yeah. So I mean, the headgear is of course derivative of a lot of characters that we know. Thor, I guess, the Thor superheroes, and even the 90s Image Comics characters have the headgear.
That was everywhere in the 90s, except it was not. It wasn't metal, right? It was just the. It wasn't a mask. I don't even know what you call it.
Ask Rob Liefeld. So So some of the designs actually had her in almost like an Ultraman mask or something.
Very cool.
Thanks. But of course I had it cost a lot of stir, who's gonna play her, and a lot of fans of a lot of local actresses were clamoring for their favorite actress to play. I keep telling them, oh, sorry, I'm not I don't have any connections to Marvel, to MCU, and she's probably not gonna get into the movies anytime soon. Blah blah blah.
But like, what a brilliant decision though, because if you look at the Agents of Atlas comic, everyone there, they're all Asians, and Wave clearly has like a very tan complexion. So what a brilliant decision to give her, morena skin color, and because obviously she swims. So obviously she'd be tan. I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah. I think I could have still made her look more exotic, to be honest. It was, it's still hard to adjust to drawing the Filipina look. Oh, by the way, also a conscious decision to, I mean, typically when you're asked to make a Filipino character, she'd be emblazoned with, the alibata, the flag. And so I really made a conscious decision not to give her those emblazoned, those design elements, just because I wanted her to be our Spider-Man, not to be our Captain Britain, or she's gonna be too local, she's gonna be like a footnote in Marvel. I wanted her to be somebody mainstream and be part of the Avengers, or if she's turns out to be a mutant like an X-Men, I don't know, but she can't. I didn't want her to be Captain Britain, to be sure.
Yeah, you can put Wave into any situation.
Yeah, and that's designed. I really wanted to avoid that. That's why I didn't give her the typical the go-to design elements that Filipino characters usually have. But I really wanted her to have a crossover with Spider-Man or something. I don't know.
That would be so cool. Yeah. So how does it feel knowing that a character you co-created is going to be drawn by Whilce?
Oh, it's definitely great. It's an honor, to be honest. As you know, Whilce is one of my heroes of all time. So
goes full circle, comes full circle.
Yeah, but I mean your first question was like a no-brainer to me. It's like the scale of their success during that time was quite unprecedented, and they changed the comic scene completely when Image Comics and stuff like that. So
what if I changed the wording of my question to Filipino citizens?
It's of course, I mean, that's an easy answer, I guess, just because I did Wolverine and the X-Men, and that's being tagged along with those big characters.
Because I think you guys, the first generation of Filipino artists are great. Alfredo Alcala, Alex Nino, and everyone. But I don't think they got that many opportunities to work on the big books, right?
Yeah. Oh, their style is also quite distinct. They're too realistic, too traditional. There was like Hal Foster.
Yeah.
Almost. They don't really fit the mainstream comics during that time. I think I even remember there's a very, like, I have a favorite issue of Alpha Flight drawn by a traditional Pinoy artist. I forget his name. Gosh, I searched for his name for a long time. No, gosh, his name escapes me. He's really good, but it's also very weird. It's very Pinoy. It doesn't look. It looks dated, but it's good art.
Yeah,
it's definitely good art. Imagine Nasser Redondo drawing X-Men. It's gonna be a good drawing, but it's not gonna be Jim Lee exciting, right?
Yeah.
So I guess the art style just doesn't fit the mainstream comics. But again, we have Alex Nino being talked about until now fondly by people. So there's still Alex Nino and Nasser Redondo and
Alcala. Yeah.
Alcala and there's a lot.
Tony DeZuniga. Yeah.
Oh, obviously, yeah. So those are still, I guess, I'm more mainstream. That's it, I guess.
What do you think
to be influential?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Sorry.
No, I mean, I'm definitely more mainstream than they are, but to have a profound effect on artists, I'm not sure. I think they're still Alex Nino. And
okay. What do you think?
Bigger,
Sorry,
I don't know.
I keep interrupting you.
No, no, but probably the delay. What's your question again? Sorry.
What do you think because now we've talked about what makes the first generation of Filipino artists, they're all super realistic, more Hal Foster like. What do you think your generation of Filipino artists, what do you think the defining characteristic is?
We're just Image Comics boys, I guess. I'm not sure. I think so. Yeah. We're influenced by Whilce, Jim Lee, the Image guys. And most of us. No, but of course we have Jay Anacleto. He has his own thing. Yeah.
What do you think about, what would you say to new artists coming in and Filipino artists trying to get into the game?
Oh, it's both easier and harder at the same time. Easier because there's no way you're not gonna get discovered if you're good, just because of the internet and social media, right? Like there was this guy Rob Moore who's been drawing Star Wars commissions, and I just tagged my editor and said, "Hey, look at this!" And then I think they're talking. I'm not sure if he already did a Marvel cover, a Star Wars cover, but it was so easy. It's easy to get discovered and to get connected. Before we had to go to the San Diego Comic Con, right? You have to talk to Whilce. He has to know people. Right now, it's easy if you're good, but at the same time, you're also competing with the whole world that has an internet access. So yeah, the best of the best. The rates may get cheaper just because there's just more people. But
you're a little more replaceable at the entry level.
Yes. Yes. It's in fact, it's just globalization, and it's natural, I guess. Unfortunate for some people, but fortunate for others.
So for my last statement here, for us closing, what I want to do is I want to thank you because when researching for this interview, I found out that you did the cover to the album of the Pinup Girls, Hello Pain. And I remembered the Pinup Girls existed, and I've had them on my Spotify on loop for the last 2 days because I used to listen to them all the time. And then, Pi moved on. And then I'm like, these guys. I love that. I love this album.
Yeah, Mondo is a super nice guy who's helped us with our. Because I had a band, and Mondo is definitely one of who supported us tremendously. So that was the least I could do for him.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Leinil, Francis. This was a great interview.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I learned a lot.
Thanks. I hope I'm interesting enough for your audience.
Of course. I'll let you know when this is up.